guys, it's me again. I know I'm guessing first of today's country is wrong. Not the first, second of today's country is wrong. Feel free to go ahead and slam me for it. But for now, we're on the Comoros, officially known as the Union of the Comoros, which is an independent archipelago island in the island country in the Indian Ocean, and it's located to the north of Mozambique's channel off Africa's eastern coast between northwestern Madagascar and northeastern Mozambique. As countries close to Comoros can be like the Seychelles, Tanzania, and as the country's capital in the country is Moroni and Grande Comore, as the country's history dates all the way back 1,500 years, as it has been occupied by different groups of people every time, and was colonised by the French in the 19th century, but only gained independence in 1975. The Citadel de Mutsamudu was built by Abdullah ben Muhammad el-Masali between 1782 and 1790. As so said, it is believed to be the first people to visit the Comoros Islands, where the Phoenician sailors, as Bantu-speaking Africans, were the early settlers in the Comoros Islands, and were the Phoenicians as the early settlers of Comoros, and evidence of their habitation on the islands is found from the 6th century, as traces of this culture have emerged from subsequent African, Malagasy, and Arab waves, as Shirazi immigrants started to arrive in the country around the 10th century AD. And in the 16th century, a number of social changes took place on the East African coast. Most of them were due to the Portuguese arrival, which led to an influx of numerous Hadrami Arabs who forged coalitions with the Shirazis and established some royal clans. As the centuries went by, as Comoros was occupied by a series of diverse communities from like Madagascar, the Southeast Asia, Persian Gulf, and African coast, as explorers from Portugal first visited the archipelago in 1505, as the French Parmentier brothers visited the islands in 1529, and besides the two brothers, Portugal was the only other country that visited Comoros in the 16th century. And it was during the 17th century when the Dutch and British started arriving to the country, and the Zwane Island was soon made a key supply location on the eastern route, as Zwane was governed by a sultan who frequently tried to expand his power to the islands, as Mwali and Mayotte, as Gazija was disunited and was at some point divided into 12 kingdoms. As by the mid-19th and mid-19th century, both the French and British shifted their attention to mainland Africa to the islands of Comoros, as each party wanted to conquer the islands. The islands were finally obtained by the French by using the divide and conquer policy and checkbook politics, as the French retained control of the country and suppressed any unrest and sporadic uprisings. And as mentioned earlier, Portuguese were first explorers to visit the island, which provided them with supplies for the forts in Mozambique during the 16th century, and in 1793, and was raided by the Malagasy warriors from Madagascar who came looking for slaves. And in 1865 it was believed that 40% of the country's population was made up of slaves, as it was in 1841 when France established colonial rule on the island, first arriving in Mayotte and signing a Treaty of April 1841 as the treaty yielded the island to France. As the Comoros was used as a way of terminal for traders voyaging to India and Far East from Europe through the Suez Canal until the Suez Canal opened, which reduced a huge percent of traffic passing through the Mozambique Channel, as Comoros were exported local goods such as tortoise shells, cattle and coconuts, as wealthy Arab traders, French settlers, and companies owned by the French created a plantation farming economy system that made use of the section of the land for exporting crops. And in 1886, the Sultan of Bamboo, Said Ali bin Said Omar, ratified a treaty with the French government allowing France to create a protectorate in the Gazija Island or Grande Comore, and in the same year other protectorates were established in Wali, known as Maheli Island in French, and Swani, now Anjon. As Sultan Said Ali bin Said Omar of Grande Comore in 1897. In 1908, the three islands were united under one administration, referred to as Colony de Mayotte de Dependencies, and were placed under the governorship of a French colonial Governor-General of Madagascar. In 1909, Sayyid Mohammed, the Sultan of Anjouan, relinquished his seat in favour of French leadership, as the colony and the protectorates were eradicated by 1912 and the islands were converted to a province of the Madagascar colony. And from the 16th of June 1940 to 1942, the colonial governorship was loyal to Vichy France under the French, but from the 25th of September 1942 to 13th of October 1946, Comoros, like Madagascar, was under British rule, and sovereignty came at a slow pace to the Comoros, and towards the middle of the 20th century, France began to slowly agree to appeals for constitutional modifications, and as a result, Comoros became an individual self-governed colony of Madagascar in 1946, and the country became a French overseas colony after World War II, and the islands had representation in the National Assembly of France, as the islands were granted international political independence in 1961. And in 1973, a treaty was reached with France and for the Comoros to attain independence in 1978. A resolution was, however, passed by Parliament in Comoros on the 6th of July 1975 that declared unilateral autonomy, and the two referendums were held in December 1974 and in February 1976, and the people of Mayotte voted against sovereignty from France both times. As Mayotte therefore remained and is still under French rule, as the government of Comoros now has control over Anjouan, Maheli and Grande Comore only. Give me a second while I turn the light on. As the first president of the islands was Ahmed Abdallah, who was ousted in an armed coup and replaced by Prince Said Mohammed Jafar, a member of the United Nations Front of the Comoros on the 3rd of August 1975. As Jafar was also ousted in January 1975 by Ali Saleh and his Minister of Defence, as President Saleh governed all the islands in the Comoros except Mayotte, which voted against sovereignty, and during his short tenure, Sully put in place a few isolationist and socialist policies that put a strain on relationships with, like the relationship with France, as it led to him being overthrown on the 13th of May 1978 by Bob Denard, who reinstated Abdallah, who had support of South Africa and Rhodesia and the French governments, respectively. As another factors marked Abdallah's tenure, heightened adherence to Islam, renaming the country to the Federal Islamic Republic of the Comoros, and an authoritarian rule, as during his presidency, Bob Denard was the de facto ruler of the nation and commander of the Presidential Guard, or PG, and the white regiments of Rhodesia, modern-day Zimbabwe, and South Africa trained for and supported him, and in return Denard was allowed to build secret listening stations within the country. Between 1985 and 1987, the relationship between the locals and the PG grew worse, and towards the end of the 1980s, South Africans were no longer supported by the mercenary government, as France was also in agreement, and Abdallah wished for the mercenaries to leave, as the PG responded by conducting a coup that resulted in the death of President Abdallah, and in 1898 Denard and his mercenaries were forced by the French and South African governments to leave the islands. As after the death of President Abdallah, Said Mohammed Shah became the next president, and his tenure was faced with a lot of turbulence, like an impeachment attempt in 1991 and a coup in 1992. As a coup, Bob Denard and his mercenaries took over the islands on the 28th of September 1995, as France would denounce the coup and the president. Jacques Chirac gave an order for his special forces to recapture the country. Denard responded by creating a new presidential guard and setting his HQ posts armed with heavy machine guns across the island, and especially around the country's two airports, as 600 men were deployed by France, and on the 3rd of October 1995 to fight the mercenaries and Denard's forces, as Denard, however, instructed his team not to fight back. And a few hours later, the French embassy in Moroni and the airports at Haia and Iconi had been secured, as Denard and his cronies surrendered the following day, as Kambi Eliakotu took over governance as acting president until January 1996, when Hioha came back from his exile. As presidential elections were held in March 1996, as Mohamed Taki Abdul Karim was elected as president, and in 1997, Mahdi and Joan Islands announced their sovereignty from the Comoros, so to restore French rule. As France, however, declined this request, resulting in fights between the rebels and the federal forces, and in April 1999, the Army Chief of Staff, Colonel Azali Soleimani, took over leadership in a bloodless coup, which ousted the interim president Massoudeh. Azali was not able to re-establish control over the islands and unify his power, as the African Union, through Thabo Mbeki, President of South Africa, enforced sanctions on the Anjouan to assist the effective reconciliation and broken negotiations. as the country's name was changed to the Union of Comoros, and a new structure of political sovereignty was put in place for each island. An union government for all islands established, and in 2002, Azali resigned as president as to vie in the democratic presidential elections, which he won, and he led the country through changes in the constitution and permitted new elections. In 2005, a loi de competence law was enacted, and it outlined duties of governmental organs, and it is going through implementation process. And in 2006, Ahmed Abdallah Mohamed Zambi won the elections, and the election was 2010 were won by Ikiriolo Dipione, and on the 26th of May 2011, he was inaugurated as president. And due to the history of the French is one of the official languages of the Comoros, as the language was introduced to the islands by the French colonists, and had been adopted as an official administrative and educational language used in most formal and official situations. As after the independence of the Comoros, French retained its official status, while Arabic is also taught in schools. French remains a primary method of instruction on the island, and the use of French in the country has influenced the culture and developed other languages, especially Comorian, but the impact is not as large as that of Arabic or Swahili. And as a member of the Arab League, the Comoros adopted Arabic as one of the official languages. As Arabic is a national as well as a religious language on the islands, and being a religious language, Arabic is a primary method of instructions of Comorian Quranic schools and all, as the majority of the population do practice Islam. As the religion of the state speaks the language, as the use of Arabic in the country developed the interactions from Islamic world, through especially in trade. As Arabic is currently used during communication in religious centres like mosques and subjects in schools, and apart from primary role in religion, language also widely used in commercial transactions, and also referred to as like Comorian, also referred to as Shekomori, as a Comorian language, developed as an official language as well as one of the most spoken languages of the country, as it's spoken by about 97% of the population, who use it as their first language, as a Bantu language of the Sabaki family, developed through interactions between like Swahili people on the east coast of Africa and like Arabs, as Comorian is mainly a spoken language, but his written form also exists, as the language uses the Latin and Arabic writing systems. As a Latin system was introduced by the French to replace the Arabic system. However, more speakers understand the Arabic script better, as Comorian has more than 100,000 native speakers to the Comoros in the French territory of Mayotte, as the language has 4 dialects, which are Gazija, Maori, Zwani and Mwali, both only 2 are common to the Comoros. And apart from the 3 official languages, there are also minor languages spoken by small portions of the population, as English and Malagasy. Other languages spoken within the islands, as English is mainly taught in schools at higher grades, as a group of immigrants, like those who immigrated from Madagascar, speak Malagasy. And a small population from the Reunion speaks Creole-based language. So yeah, that is Comoros for you, and yeah, bye for now, and I'll see you shortly feel free to slide me for how I say the next one. So yeah, bye for now.